So the first question I have for you is, what makes you teach Seerah? What makes you love teaching the Seerah so much?
Man, that's a beautiful question. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Speaking about the Prophet ﷺ is something that, listening to my parents speak about him growing up, my teachers, and then spending the evenings preparing for the class months before, and then in the session, it's just, time goes by so fast. I enjoy every single aspect of it. Particularly, I present myself as if I'm walking with the Prophet in the Seerah. And I'm trying to hear his heartbeat, sense his pulse, his highs and lows. And, we are, as followers of the Prophet ﷺ, we are supposed to love him more than our parents. And one of the ways to build that relationship is by studying and teaching. And to be honest, I think I've learned more than I've taught, in this Seerah. So 7 days, 8 hours a day, they fly by so fast because every moment's enjoyable. It's exhausting. I know you, as a teacher, you get fatigued. Your voice, starts to, you start to lose your voice in the middle of the program. But man, it's an exciting thrill. Besides with the public coming and the students, everything's exciting. Seeing the reactions of people, honestly, also seeing the way people are able to process the Seerah and be part of it. You're seeing live. They're live, not virtually, live. Their reactions, their tears, their excitement, and we're witnessing almost a miracle of 500 people in person crying to the Prophet, cheering for the Prophet, and loving the Prophet, and writing notes. This is unbelievable.
Alhamdulillah. So, as a student sitting in the class for 7 days, it gets tired. Right? You sometimes become impatient. You're sleepy. You're tired. You can't come back in the morning. Now we can only imagine, as an instructor, how hard it is, because you don't just teach, you also prepare. How do you go through that preparation process?
Oh, preparation never ends. Even now I'm thinking about the Seerah. I started thinking about it months ago, and I'll be thinking about it even after the Seerah. Like the next month or two, I can't stop talking about the Seerah. It's just on my mind when you engross yourself that much. So reality is that I try to pace myself, get some good rest, try to eat healthy, sleep well, and just keep my eyes on the books. It's my 6th year doing it, going back and revising the notes that were done in the past, and always editing, modifying. What do you want to share? And depending on what's happening in the world, I like to share the message that people are most in need of. Where Abdul Rahim Rahmatullah, my brother, passed away, I was personally in need of comfort, through the Prophet ﷺ's suffering. I saw his pain, and I used that as a healer, as some form of counsel for myself. And I found so much comfort, and I shared that with the community because it was COVID. Now witnessing what's happening in Gaza, I feel like the community is broken again, and we will need together to collectively go through the Seerah, unpack those events that the Prophet ﷺ and his companions went through. How did he react, and how does Allah's victory come? What are the promises of Allah throughout the Seerah? So what really keeps me going is that, just reading before coming, continuously reading after, thinking about it. And I think the last hour or so, you really can't add anything to the class. You just, by now it's like, just get in whatever you have prepared, make sure you're able to deliver. Sometimes the challenge isn't delivering, the challenge is over-delivering, because you only have 7 hours a day. And you want to say so much about the Prophet. You want people to know what you think is most worthy, and everything is worthy. But in that limited time, it's about pacing and spacing and delivering what can be digested. So I think that's a harder and greater challenge in the Seerah class.
Okay. Now, Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ has so many moments, stories, people around him. What is one of your personal moments that makes you very emotional, where you cry, or a moment that you would like to share with people that you really cherish?
Every moment of the Prophet ﷺ Seerah is amazing. أي شيء لم يكن له عجب. Like Aisha radiallahu anha said when someone asked her, what is your favorite, memorable moment? And then she said, every moment of the Prophet's life was exceptional. But what really makes me soft, and I share this story all the time, is the story has a background, and then that experience has to be digested completely. If you take the story from the context, there's just a story perspective. You don't look at the whole context of the story. You don't really feel the emotions. Knowing the Prophet ﷺ, how much he loved Mu'adh ibn Jabal, and my attachment to Mu'adh ibn Jabal personally, and as a young man, who he was, and growing up as a young man, wanting and admiring him, wanting to be like him, and seeing what he did for Islam. He accepted Islam so young. He didn't live more than, scholars say, he lived around 33 years old. Some scholars say 37, 38. But he died before the age of 40. Accomplished so much. And the story of him being dispatched to Yemen from the Prophet ﷺ, city Medina, and the Prophet ﷺ is sending him, and the emotions that are running in his heart. And I lived a life, my whole life, farewelling my parents, going to a boarding school, and every time I left, it was painful. And it was even more painful for my parents. So I've gone through the experience of farewelling people in and out. And I've seen that same interaction with my students and their parents. Man, what would be going through the heart of Mu'adh ibn Jabal? This is no scene out of a movie or airport. This is the Prophet ﷺ telling Mu'adh ibn Jabal, عَسَاكَ أَلَّا تَلْقَانِي بَعْدَ عَامِي هَذَا. You will not see me when you return from Yemen. وَلَعَلَّكَ أَن تَمُرُّوا بِمَسْجِدِي وَقَبْرِي. You will come by, see my masjid, you see my grave. I won't be alive. And what do you think Mu'adh ibn Jabal, like now he's crying. That whole walk or the ride on a camel to Yemen, miles away, days and weeks of travel. What do you think he was going through the whole time, crying, knowing that he will never see his Prophet, beloved, best friend, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This story, always in Seerah, I don't know how many times I've said it, but it always touches my heart. And the beautiful part of the story is Mu'adh crying is visible, but people don't notice. فَالْتَفَتَ النَّبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. The Prophet turned his face towards the city of Medina, which was north, and Mu'adh is going south, Yemen. So if the Prophet ﷺ is turning away from Mu'adh as he's crying, he's doing this for what reason? Obviously, the Prophet has tears, the Prophet has emotions. He's also going to miss his companion, and the Prophet's holding that in and sending him to Yemen for a greater cause. And you can see the results. And the most beautiful thing about this is that the results, the sacrifice led to a whole nation accepting Islam, and not only learning Islam. Today, mashallah, one of the best Muslims in the world are the Muslims from Yemen. Al-imanu yamani wal-hikmatu yamani. So this virtue of sacrifice in that story always touches my heart.
So that's one of your stories. I'm sure there are many more. And I'm sure there are students and attendees that share stories, reflect, testimony they share with you. Is there anything that you can share that a student shared with you that you would like for us to know?
Most people that, I can't remember something in particular, but most people coming out of the Seerah have told me they changed their life. I'm sure the way they speak about it, the way their heart has melted to the Prophet ﷺ, they said, we never experienced our relationship with the Prophet like this before. After the Seerah Intensive, 7 days, 8 hours, I'm asking myself, are you guys sitting here for this long? And why are you sitting here for this long? I know I'm teaching, but 7 hours to sit and listen? Some people can listen very well, but that's very, 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 you have to be very patient for that. It demands a lot of courage and steadfastness. So every person that I spoke to has given me their feedback is that, they just are extremely in love with the Prophet ﷺ. People have come to me multiple times and experiencing their dreams that they have seen of the Prophet ﷺ, and I'm envious of them. After the Seerah Intensive, multiple people have come to me, and they literally go to sleep reciting salawat. Some people have come to me and said, going to bed after, or in the middle of the Seerah Intensive, is like just crying, thinking about him. It's a different atmosphere overall in the hall. It's almost similar to being in Medina, like that spirituality, and everyone's connecting with the Prophet ﷺ, and you're saying the name of the Prophet over and over, and everyone's there for the same reason, to connect with the Prophet ﷺ. So these, not one story in particular, but everybody has shared the same experience with me, most of them.
Is there anything new you learned in preparing for this year's Seerah?
Mm.
Something you haven't shared before?
I was, this year's Seerah, I was going to speak a little bit more about the Prophet's strategic strategy and execution, how he was so planned and organized and thorough in his delivery, whether it came as a statesman, as a prophet, as a leader, to shed some light on that. So I learned more, I focused more of my studying this year on that. And it is really admirable that people look at the Prophet ﷺ as a man who taught the world how to pray and give charity and be loyal to Allah and dutiful to your family and your community. But the Prophet ﷺ is a genius. He's a very intelligent person. And sometimes his good character and his upright personality overshadows his statesman skills. But truly, this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the greatest leader ever to walk on this earth. And the way he stayed in Makkah and then he moved to Medina, and him stationing a group of Muslims in Habasha, and where he lived in Medina, and small things. There's a group of people that wanted to move to the Prophet's masjid, closer to the Prophet's masjid. And the Prophet said, أَقْدَامُكُمْ تُكْتَبُ آثَارُكُمْ. Your steps from the distance will write more reward for you. So the more steps you take, the more reward you get. Obviously, that's an incentive for reward. But the Prophet is also, he is thinking that we need to have some eyes outside of Medina to see the tribes, Banu Qurayza, and them who are, and if there's a invasion, we don't know anyone out. If we don't have people outside, we're not going to get any information until they are ready to completely annihilate the city. So the Prophet had strategically told Muslims, don't just live in Medina, live outside. From his walk to Quba. He would walk to Quba on Saturdays. His walk on Saturdays, he would walk, not take a donkey, not take a horse, not take a mule, not a camel. He would purposely walk to Quba on Saturday. And the reason he chose Saturday is that was the market, that was the neighborhood of the Jews of Medina. And he wanted to show his visibility, his presence, and he was accessible to them. If he was riding a camel, you're not eye level with them. You're like, there's a prophet on the back of an animal. You're not able to be as intimate with the people on the ground. Sometimes when you want to be intimate with someone, you get out of the car and you talk to them, not roll the window down and speak to them. The Prophet basically got out of the car and walked. And he would do this on Saturday, available for them on their holiday, letting them know, I'm the Prophet of Allah. You have any questions, I'm here for you. I'm not here as any threat or an ally. All on Saturday. And he encouraged the Muslim community to do it, and they get the reward to pray Salah in Masjid Quba of Hajj and Umrah accepted. So you got them the reward, the incentive, but there was a larger intention. The ajr is there, but there's also a strategy in that walk. So imagine his walks were strategized. His hijrah was strategized. His marriages were strategized. His sending and deploying his companions were all very meticulous and very thought out. And that's what I really admire about the Prophet ﷺ.
So we've been hearing a lot of testimonials on social media, in person, students coming outside of state from local. They always say good things about learning about the Prophet ﷺ, life-changing, the way they think, the way they see, the way they live their life. They also talk good about Miftaah, the environment, how it helps them. Now, we don't hear testimonial from the instructor's point of view. So if you can tell us why we should take the time into learning about Seerah, why a week, and then if you can add to it, why Miftaah?
It is our duty to know the Prophet ﷺ. We have to love the Prophet ﷺ more than our family, our children, the whole world. How do you think this will get? How can a person accomplish this without, studying the Prophet ﷺ? It's possible you could have a special relationship with the Prophet ﷺ without even reading a book on him. But imagine you have that love already. You love him so much, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you learn more about him. It just adds more purpose and perspective. So it's, there's something beautiful about Muslims. Anywhere you go, everybody has a love of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and everybody wishes to know more about him. It's amazing. And you go to any part of the world. This is our soft spot. The Muslims have a soft spot, is the Prophet ﷺ. Go anywhere and talk about the Prophet. Even those Muslims who are struggling to pray, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we love you, O Prophet of Allah. We wish to come to Medina. So who doesn't want to learn about the Prophet? It's a matter of time. They just make it as a priority. And Miftaah is a perfect atmosphere. The diversity, the youth, the adults. You have grandparents with their grandchildren, brothers and sisters, 400 or 500 people from Europe, Canada, United States of America, over 30 some states. And if you just come in and you just sit yourself in the middle of the class, and the first day you don't even think about taking notes, but just by seeing the tears and the emotions of the people, your iman, your feelings, and your thoughts will change and get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not a 1 hour class, it's 7 days. So you really get to connect with good people, like-minded people, people who are looking for an opportunity to love the Prophet more and more, people who have gone through pain in their life and want comfort from the Prophet's seerah, people who are struggling to make decisions in life and they want to know how the Prophet decided things. They come to the seerah. People who didn't know much about the Prophet growing up, now they got introduced, they're coming to learn the seerah. People who converted to Islam and they heard Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and people are talking about, who is this person? Came to learn about the seerah. People who were hearing negative things about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the non-Muslims saying negative things about his personality and his life. Let me learn about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the people are coming from different angles, but most and everyone, they're there to build a better relationship with the Prophet of Allah and in extension to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You love the Prophet, you love Allah, So I feel like the environment is so welcoming. The volunteers, the team, the staff, everyone from the welcoming team, the hospitality team, the service, the food, everyone's just coming in so open and non-judgmental, very diverse. It's you just feel like what I've experienced from people coming, they're like, man, it feels like we're at home. No one's judging you, no one's questioning you, and just I really feed off the energy of that type of crowd myself. So if you are thinking that I've studied all this in my life, I've college, high school, master's, postgrad, worked, and I don't know much about the Prophet, this is a perfect time, and this is what we should do one time, and it will literally give you a new perspective to even the Quran. Because the Prophet's life is the tafsir of the Quran.
When seerah starts, is it just about the seerah? Are we going to learn about the description of the Prophet ﷺ? Is there going to be Q&A? Am I going as an student? Am I going to have access after I leave? How does it work?
When you ever go through seerah, you're going to talk about his personal life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're going to talk about his beautiful characteristics, his traits. And you're going to talk about his family. You're going to talk about his children. You're going to talk about things he liked. What made him smile, what made him cry. These are all part of the shama'il. They're, special characteristics of the Prophet. So we'll shed some light on that. There are parts in the seerah that you must and you can't avoid describing the Prophet, his arrival in Medina and the beauty that was illuminated in the city by his arrival. So you experience that when you arrive in Medina. When you're in the class and you miss some lectures, everything is recorded, it's visible and accessible on the portal, the Seerah portal. The notes are written out and they're shared. Miftaah writers, publishers type out the notes and they share with the students the next day. They have all the notes of yesterday's class and they have access to this archive for the rest of their life online, so they can be anywhere in the world. And 10 years from now, I want to listen to the Seerah again. I attended it, but I want to hear it one more time. I wanted my children to listen to it. And you can have another experience. Maybe you just want to learn about one thing that you want to share with your family. Right? Go back to the Seerah. All of it's archived, recorded, and transmitted right to you at the tip of your fingers from the comfort of your home, even after leaving the Seerah Intensive.